What do you need for sports? You need to be strong. Well, who's strong? Well, who's the strongest? All right, so they start measuring the guys who can lift 500 pounds, 1,000 pounds, right? And you notice certain things about their core, what it has to do for their spine. And so the hypothesis was that the core does not generate power, it only transmits power. The job of the core is to stabilize so you have anchor points for the hip and the shoulder. And this is of the most critical importance to, and listen, hyperbole, I'm no stranger to it, but this is of critical importance for the integrity of the human species. And I'm going to back that up.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Humanity's United Martial Arts Network. And today, I'm particularly excited because of my good friend, David Weck, with us. Marcus, what are your first impressions of David?
Genius. Like that when you watch a movie and you like what's it called? Back to the Future.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I think. Doc,
yeah.
Marty. 1.21 gigawatts.
And I don't know, for the people who don't know you, David, I don't know like where to begin. But usually here's where I start, is you're the person who invented the Bosu ball. I feel like everyone has either stood on or seen a Bosu ball. And for those of you who the name doesn't render yet, it's the half ball. The exercise
blue
ball.
half ball.
Yeah, the blue exercise ball.
Oh, yeah, that thing.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's,
yeah.
I've seen that. Yeah, it's in every single gym. It's in every physical rehab center. It's in every hotel gym. It's all over the place. And you invented that how long ago now?
1999.
I was 9 years old.
1999.
how did you invent that?
So I was living in Manhattan, and I was an actor pursuing acting, and I was personal training to make a living. And I rollerbladed everywhere because I'm an economy, Shane knows that I'm obsessive. And so what I did was I spent 6 years in rollerblades, and I didn't walk for 6 years. And my feet became like Princess in a Pea kind of nubile, weak. I was on a rocky beach in France once, and I had to crawl off the beach.
Oh.
And I went to the community swimming pool in my hometown one summer around that time. And I literally had to sit down because my feet hurt so bad. And I'm building this up thematically because it ties into what we're going to talk about, structural integrity of the human body, to optimize the human being, the individual, and so that we can, piece together a future that's worth living. Yeah. Right. I get deep and heavy.
Yeah. We got time.
But anyway, thank you.
So you got this feet problem, I'm sure that ties into low back. And
there you go. So what happened was I got a job. I made a lot of money on this commercial, and I bought a motorcycle with the money. And it wasn't a lot of money. So the motorcycle had a starter motor that was faulty. So for a couple of weeks, I was jump starting the motorcycle down 56th Street the wrong way to get it going. And so I'd sit side saddle and I'd go trip it. And one morning a cab swerved and I had to swerve. I dropped the bike and I just in a hurry wrenched it up. And I felt my back felt something. You're an athlete, you felt something.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
Right? And I felt that and I'm like, oh, Jesus. Right? And 3 days later I collapsed with pass out pain. Like my nervous system whited out.
Yeah.
And I literally collapsed. And I had that back pain through the weak feet and the ignorance of I don't really know how to move my body mathematically.
Yeah.
With the musical precision of the martial integrity, right? The martial science that forms the foundation for the march all science.
Mm.
So I play with words. What happens is I was 29 years old in 1999, and I invented the Bosu ball, and I recognized the financial opportunity, and I was starting to sweat. Okay, I want to have a family. How am I going to make an income? And so I was pursuing acting, which is a very high risk profession. And I had come out of a school, Williams College, where I had worked on Wall Street the summer before, and I was all set to go kill on the street, or work for Bain, or somewhere where you're going to make a lot of money is the whole point.
What were you studying?
My major was political economy, but for me, I grew up in sort of just a suburban, upper middle class where my father just provided opportunity for his kids. College was paid for. and I got to sort of extend just the dream of like not having to grow up all the way till senior year in college, where I could just focus on football, like
American football.
American football.
Right,
like
okay.
I was obsessed with American football. Like obsessed with American football. I would organize my summer jobs so that I could go to Fairleigh Dickinson University and study the New York Giants defensive secondary every single day and watch Bill Belichick with those guys. Like I'm talking way back where I'm studying the pros, and then I'm training with. I was fortunate. Neil O'Donnell played in the NFL. He went to my high school, and so every summer Neil would quarterback NFL with NFL and Div 1 wideouts, and I'm a D-back. So I got to go and I got to build my own system for covering guys who were fundamentally better than me. And that's like, you now have to, it's a chess game. If the guy can just outrun you, he would just outrun you. But he's not training to play me. He's training to play some guy who's just as fast as him. So he has the rules of certain patterns. And if you play the chess, it's just, positions, transitions, options. What's on the table do I know, and what do I have the potential to do? And so I developed a system of keys and reads in the defensive secondary that made me very good at Division III football. Like frustrating, where the guy on the team who could run a 4.5 clocked, like, he could beat me in a time, he'd be like, why can you cover me? Why can you cover me? Because I'm playing like this, right? So I approach all problems with, how can I solve this so I don't have to do any work? And I'm willing to work and work and work to find that magic little, like, oh, wow, like those discoveries that level up. And when you invent the Bosu ball, I knew it was going to be successful.
Was there anything that really led to the discovery of the Bosu ball? Was it your focus on balance?
Yes, it was the stability ball. So basically what happened was I spent a year and a half just ignoring the problem that I was in pain by taking a leave.
Yeah.
Martial arts people can relate.
Yeah.
And it's just, when one little blue pill didn't work, I would take 2. And when 2 didn't work, I would take 3. Sometimes I'd take 6 pills in a day. You're not supposed to take more than 2 in a day. And I was taking them like Tic Tacs, buying the tall bottles.
Yeah.
Drinking alcohol on top of it, because I was, I was East Coast and I just drank.
Yeah.
It was normal, 4 to 6 drinks, and it was just a normal thing.
Yeah.
At night, I drank a bottle of wine and had a cigar with whiskey. I mean, it was just sort of like normal for me.
Yeah.
And so what happened was I went toxic to the point where I was oozing out of my navel. It was disgusting. I had these like thousands of pimples coming out of me, and I just kept fuck it, cover it up and go. Like I was just burning the candle at both ends, ignoring the problem, and just ignorant if I didn't know how to fix it. My pain. And it was nagging pain where I was never comfortable. Like all day long I was squirming. It was terrible.
Yeah.
And so I suffered that. And then what happened was physical therapy ran out, and the lady showed me the exercise ball on the very last session. She said, well, here's an exercise ball, and here's some exercises you can do with it. And my father had actually had one, and I used to just horse
Swiss
around.
ball?
The Swiss ball.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Right? And I used to horse around on it in high school just a little bit, but then I started like rolling on it and training on it. And what happened was that reflexive reset, right? It's an opportunity to sort of we can recalibrate when we use the reflexive system, and the body prioritizes balance. And so what happens is now you have to get into risk reward. And the stability ball, the knock on it is that it's too risky. If you stand on it, you can fall.
I've fallen on it, almost knocked myself out.
Listen, if you're confident enough to try it, recognize that you're going to fall. If you push the envelope, at some point you will fail, and you might get hurt. And so what happened was I was training both ends of the spectrum, because what tapped me into the softer, more receptive side that allows the weaker guy to beat the stronger guy, because you're capable of yielding and owning both sides, and then let them commit. Okay, boom, I got you. And if I can change it faster than you can, well, then you just can't get my center. So that's sort of the idea. And it was Feldenkrais it's a somatic discipline. It's a movement methodology where a practitioner performs what's called functional integration. And they manipulate your nervous system, and what they're looking for is they're looking to coax your skeleton into the easy, like oh, I can't raise my arm, but they'll manipulate it and do some weird things, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, wow, it opened up, and the nervous system is like, oh, fresh air, and it learns it. And so you can have a dramatic, profound performance enhancement neurologically, is the point, through Feldenkrais. And it's basically the nervous system has to be able to discern a differential. If I'm carrying a piano and a fly lands on the piano, I can't tell you that there's any change. So to me, it didn't change. My nervous system is ignorant of the differential.
Yeah.
If it's 1,000 light bulbs and one burns out, I can't tell. But at 10% there's something called the Weber-Wechner law, that at about 10%, you can sense the gradation of force differential. And for movement intelligence, that's the threshold where you have to be, is where you're at that sensitivity, right? Where you can sense the differential. Oh, sense the differential. Because if you can sense the differential and you find the pivot, with balance, I'll move the whole world. And see, and that's where, like, and this, I get the goosebumps because I'm like a little treasure chest that has been working for 2 decades on this, because when I invented the Bosu ball, I knew that was my financial ticket. I live in San Diego, California, and every month a check shows up. And I don't have to work. Oh, wow. And I've had that for 20 years.
But you do work.
Oh, I work. But yes, I do. I intentionally, and this is what it was. I took that same competitive drive that was for football and for what competitive in all things, right? And I said, all right, I am going to become the world's foremost authority on the subject of balance, measured by locomotion. And it is that key qualification that it is measured by locomotion that makes it honest, objective, and it makes it so that I can stand with 100% authority saying, I know things that no human being has ever known as it relates to the biomechanics of movement.
So scientifically backed by what?
Well, scientifically backed by motherfucker, you carry it easy, you tell me. That's the science, all right? That's the science that matters. Is it matters until you get punched in the fucking nose, right? So and I say that with jest, but I say it with frustration, and I'm finally learning, Shane, to say it with relief.
Well, explain.
Yeah.
I recently heard someone say, and I forget because I can't quote who said it, but they said, you go to school to get degrees in someone's opinion.
Just Tony Blauer.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Tony. Yeah. I'm sure Tony. But
yeah,
but is that what you're saying?
Subject matter expertise.
Where in the fitness world, there seems to be all these universal truths, but it's not. It's lies, or it's will sometimes be true, but not in all senses. And you're trying to open up people's minds to the fact that we should be teaching rotation. The core doesn't always have to be braced. There's different rules that are supposed to be broken, but people are taught otherwise.
This is a real great opportunity, and for the audience out there, my objective is to advance the ball into our species relates to gravity and the ground more intelligently for our own individual personal benefit. There's certain cardinal laws that are natural, that no man, no woman can deny or change or whatever, and that vertical force defines the where and the when. So it's the orientation to the down force. Gravity. Exactly. And it's a timing. There's an acceleration factor as this, and who knows what it really is, right? It's really exciting. Is it like space-time bending, warping, right? wow, it's really cool. But gravity presents us with the orientation to the where and the when. Where, straight down to the center of the mass of the Earth, and when, 9.8 meters per second squared, that's the acceleration factor. And everything, the birds, the bees, the wind, the rivers, everything is governed by that natural law. Okay? So there's no denying the locomotive function in terms of measuring time to go from point A to point B. You have an objective measurable that defines sort of like what can you do with the totality of yourself, transporting yourself from here to there. And so what you do by qualifying my expertise in balance, it is measured by locomotion. That gives me the authority to know scientifically that if I'm doing it faster,
then you're doing it faster.
I'm doing it faster, right?
Basic laws of physics,
if I'm doing it faster, I'm doing it faster.
Yeah.
And then you have the subjective, qualitative experience that when it feels easier and the clock says it's faster, well, and here's the catch. Here's the catch, is that to master the understanding of balance, to understand locomotion, you need the other side of the coin to locomotion, which is fight. Flight, fight. And fight, my master's better than your master. A beats B beats C, but C beats A. Styles make fights, and the debate will never end. However, Usain Bolt is the fastest man for 100 meters on the historical record. There is no debate, but Sugar Ray Robinson, Floyd Mayweather Jr., tell me who's better. Roy Jones!
Yeah.
Mike Tyson, tell me who's better. Styles make fights. And so what I did was I recognized, like, okay, it's about air and blood to your brain. It's survival, and it's right now. When? 9.8 meters per second squared. That's a when. And when you're conscious, you're animated. You have this like animating reflex that extends you, and it uplifts you. Whoa, it's amazing, right? But you're very vulnerable here. When I was in high school, I was a football guy, and I cared about the bench press. I cared about the 40. I cared about the jump. I cared about all that. I could dunk a volleyball consistently. I ran a 4.6 40. I lost my bench press because I lost my right arm when I was 16. The bone was broken off. The doctor, rather than fix it by taking that fragment of bone and removing it and attaching to solid bone, he took the fragment of bone and he wired it back on.
Whoa.
And the day I got out of the cast, the whole thing ruptured and the tendon went with it. So I don't have a right arm.
That's the most you can extend it.
That's the most I can extend it. And look at, I was humiliated in high school. Look at my little pencil arm. That's embarrassing when you're young. Right. So I have no right arm. The reason why I don't have, why I'm not like slinging kettlebells overhead is because I can't hold a kettlebell overhead.
I never knew that.
Yeah, like I have a fundamental deficiency in here that I had to compensate, and I have a replaced right hip as consequence from this.
You had a hip replacement.
I have a hip replacement.
And from...
Because I compensated for this. When I play football, I was told you can't play football because you don't have an arm. So I said, all right, if I tape it here and I tape it here and I cross-hatch it and I tape it, well, then you can't bend it either. Okay, I have an arm, right? So I can play football, right? So I play football that way, and what I had to do is I had to always tilt my whole body to compensate for the fact that I got a funnel. I got to get right to my lat from my arm. I don't have the extension of the tricep.
Yeah,
so I got to learn. So I, inadvertently learning
the
that, right?
coiling.
But this is aberrational.
Right,
This
right.
is not to strength. This is like, you don't have the strength, so you're making up for it.
Yeah.
And then I could squat 500 pounds to a parallel in high school, and I could dunk a volleyball. I ran a 4.6 40, and I was never clean at the mechanics of squatting. My hips don't like the deep squat, And so coupled with this constant turn of favoring to, to make up for the fact I don't have a tricep, it just puts such a grind and all that heavy weightlifting to play football, to build on the body mass. I had, literally I have a replaced hip.
So to piggyback off
Anyway.
what Shane said as far as education, so you studied economics. Now we're in physics, right? And not to say that education will always make you a master of any topic. In fact, a lot of times you can be more open-minded when you don't follow, a set curriculum, like Shane said. Where did you get all this knowledge from? I know it's easy today, but this isn't yesterday you did this.
No, well, what happened is I have a high level intellect, so I can process information very quickly. And the point that I was making about the success of the Bosu ball is it allows you to go off and be a little bit weird because there's not a financial consequence. Right.
You're not weird though, David.
Well,
you come across as a genius in many ways.
But by some measures,
Standards,
I'm
yeah.
a little odd, right? By some, right? And I have had my trials and I've lost my mind, clinically lost my mind 3 times. I went through a whole series of ECT where they Jack Nicholson shock your brain and reset me. Like I'm living on borrowed time. I've had 3 strikes and I struck out. And for the grace of God, I'm back. And I remember after I came out of the ECT, it was
for the listeners and
that's
myself.
electroconvulsive therapy.
Oh,
that's
literally the scene
Literally
from
the
Cuckoo's
same.
Nest.
Literally, what they do is they anesthetize you and they paralyze you, so you don't jump off the table.
That's
but
the 80s, right?
No, it's cutting edge anti-depression mental health treatment.
Today.
Cutting edge, it's the gold standard. If you have someone who is catatonic, imagine me, 100% catatonic.
Wow.
In as intense as I am now, picture intense as this guy's a void. That's where I was. Like I wasn't gonna off myself, but I wouldn't have moved if the truck is coming.
What year is this?
It's multiple years. The first time I lost my mind was 2002. The next time I lost my mind, I think, was 2005-ish, 6-ish, I think. And then the next time I did was like a 2014, 15, 16.
And when you say lose your mind, you is it deep stage of depression?
Well, 3 different experiences. The first one was literally like, okay, it's the Matrix, and I just took a red pill. Like I grew up on the East Coast where Nancy Reagan, born in 1970, I'm 50, so it was just say no. Drugs are bad. Pot is for losers. Crush the fucking Budweiser and give me another one, motherfucker. Like I would never back down from a headbutt contest in high school.
Sounds like the East Coast, yeah.
Yeah,
Sounds
I
like
mean,
Philly.
and I was the best headbutter in because I just wouldn't back down. I've dented so many drywalls with this.
Man.
I used to stutter and reverse my sentences in high school because I was trying to break my helmet every day. It was a different mentality in the 80s. You were encouraged to go up, you know what I'm saying? Like you were encouraged to spear with your head.
Yeah.
Back then, put it right on the ball, right?
And just now CTE is coming into
Oh God, I mean, listen, whatever. I don't know what contributed, but I've concussed so many times it's ridiculous. But you build a tolerance to it. There's a reason why you need a few weeks in football because all that stuff you need, the brain is now used to that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you don't fare so well,
Yeah.
right? That's what makes guys like Bo Jackson all the more special. They don't need the preparation because they're just avoiding that. They play at a higher level. But anyway, I don't want to go way too off the point.
So the Bosu ball is made what year?
So 1999 is when I invented it. I recognize the opportunity, and it's 3 things for the entrepreneurs out there. So you have the intellectual property, that's the patents, the trademarks, the copyrights, the intellectual property. Like, for example, right? Even imagery, it's intellectual property. So you're shoring that up. The manufacture and distribution, you have to get that going, right? So there's prototyping and mold building, et cetera, all that. And then you have marketing, and marketing begins, now, hey, I got this amazing thing coming, blah, blah, blah. And then it was get the testimonials. And I knew that the U.S. ski team would be my first customer because, there's not a male skier at the high level who has not blown out their knee. Okay? And I've had some of the best skiers in the world personally tell me your Bosu ball was a big part of me coming back and doing it on the mountain and winning a medal. Wow. And you back when Bodie Miller was like a big star.
Yeah,
I got so much coverage of the Bosu ball being used organically, so it was able to promote it, right? And I knew that like it was going to be a hit. I knew it, and I knew that if I could secure the patent, it would give me a head start to be first to market. That I could dominate that market, and it's every year there's going to be more of them. Like during the course of a lifetime, the human being's going to interact with it.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, it's like a jump rope. It's just one of those things, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And the Bosu ball enjoyed this editorial advertisement from the media, because if I'm the fitness editor, I have to frame the shot. Well, throw a Bosu ball in there, and then all of a sudden I got a fitness shot, right? I got to sell magazines. Well, 5 ways to do sis on a Bosu ball, right?
Yeah.
So I enjoyed all this advertising that I didn't have to pay for.
Free PR.
It was literally like we had a PR campaign that was millions of dollars, and it would be like you'd open up Men's Journal, and there'd be 5 pictures of Lance Armstrong, and 2 of them would be with the Bosu ball, and one of them is so dramatically staged. It's just like I called the photographer and I got a framed picture of it. Because it was just like, oh wow, we didn't even know it was going to be in there. Wow. So the Bosu ball, and it wasn't as crowded, the fitness space back then. And so, and when I launched it, the instability was the craze, right? Paul Check was the sort of the avant-garde. You had I'm a historian in the fitness industry. Yeah. And I can tell you sort of, from the gymnastics, sort of, that type of gymnastics boxing club YMCA back in the 20s, the women with the Indian clubs during the war, and then Arthur Jones created Nautilus. And what he did was he basically systematized strength training, and he basically just took the human error out of it and created the opportunity. If I'm a gym owner, I can make an investment and then I don't have to pay. There's no upkeep other than oiling the chains, right? Swipe off the sweat. You just look at a picture, do the exercise. Mm-hmm. And he created an empire. And that's what Glassman talks about as the Globo Gym. So the Globo Gym is the one where you have the cardio wall, right? Where they all run and watch TV on the treadmills, right? And it's the membership base, right?
Glassman, the founder of CrossFit.
The founder of CrossFit. And CrossFit's fascinating because CrossFit came into existence like right around the time, and I think after the Bosu ball. Yeah. So they went from 0 to 900-pound gorilla because what he was doing was he saw the opportunity of this sort of the corruption of the institutionalized academic, peer review, it's all influenced by the big pharma and the food and the university stuff. So Glassman saw the folly in this Globo Gym where it's like, sign the waiver before you touch your toes because you might die. You know what I mean? Just we're not going to treat you like a person. We're going to treat you like cattle who we're feeding cornflakes to, and it's just preposterous, right? Glassman's like, no, we got firefighters who need to carry buckets of water up the ladder. Go. Yeah. Right? Yeah. What can you do? Don't sit there and tell me about a push-up. Do the fucking push-up. It's basically what CrossFit did. He brought a level of honesty into it. Yeah. Right?
100%.
And then you have what happened was the Bosu ball enjoyed this wellspring surge of the instability craze so that I was able to secure testimonials like that. And I knew the game. It was, who's going to believe me? But if I can say that the New York Yankees just bought it, the LA Lakers just bought it, the LA Rams just bought it, right? The New York Knicks just bought it. Everybody just bought it, right? I sold hundreds of prototypes that I made by hand, to get the story going. And I didn't care who bought it, as long as the tag at the end said professional sports team, so-and-so strength coach, Los Angeles Lakers.
Yeah.
And I was able to advertise it to the fitness industry with that credibility and that authority, with a marketplace that was ripe to receive it because they were still using the stability ball. You would go to a convention in 1999, and there would be rooms filled with 400 stability balls. What? You don't see that today.
Yeah.
And what gym has the storage to store the 30 stability balls, right?
Not us.
You see what I'm saying? Like, .com, everybody's getting a little carried away. Like, okay, you know what I'm saying? And there's nothing wrong with it. It's just it became sort of like a fad almost, right? It trended into like a little bit out of hand. And what happened was a certain group, two groups in particular, and I'm not going to say the names, but what happened was they commandeered and basically took charge of functional training. It's a generic term, but it's sexy as hell when it's, compared to bodybuilding. It's functional training, right? Oh, well, they know how to exercise you for whatever, but we know how to make you function better. And we have the peer-reviewed, university, PhD sanctioned, the $1 million laboratory. We have the science. Those guys, and it's two organizations that basically, it's sort of like the UFC. If you can get the best fighters, you can corner the market.
Yep.
You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
So they cornered the market on functional training, and they had the academic authority, of literally, so if you want to be a strength coach in the NCAA, in college, well, then you need this certain degree from a certain organization. And they have the peer review. And what happened was they shifted the narrative. From functional training became two things. And this was the marketing. It became core stability and anti-rotation, instability makes you weaker. So the biggest cardinal sin that you could do in fitness, if you were serious about strength and conditioning in 2007, was put someone on a stability ball. Because it represented that you hadn't learned yet that made the athlete weaker. This is the official narrative. Okay?
Okay.
So, and I'm sorry if it's out of context.
No,
it's
not. And,
And what I want to do is let me define why I am raising this subject and why it is of the utmost importance. Is because the nervous system, the lower brain, is smarter than us. It is divine. Each and every one of us, regardless of what you scored on your SATs, you're God's gift to this experience in the lower brain. It knows that. It has mechanisms to survive. Yeah. And when you do the Pal-Off press, the epitome of anti-rotation to create the core stability through a rigid, stiff, neutral core, it was their fascination with lifting the barbell that got them confused. So they equated the deadlift and the squat and the max there, where you do certain things with your spine, with everything else. Because it was a fascination with that, and it's a bully culture we're living.
Yeah.
Fascination with who can put up the most weight.
It's a fascination. What happened is the science went in the direction of we're going to study the health of the spine and function of the spine as it relates to sports. What do you need for sports? You need to be strong. Well, who's strong? Well, who's the strongest? All right, so they start measuring the guys who can lift 500 pounds, 1,000 pounds, right? And you notice certain things about their core, what it has to do for their spine. Yeah. And so the hypothesis was that the core does not generate power, it only transmits power. The job of the core is to stabilize so you have anchor points for the hip and the shoulder. Mm-hmm. And this is of the most critical importance. And listen, hyperbole, I'm no stranger to it, but this is of critical importance for the integrity of the human species. And I'm going to back that up as serious as it is, because the lower brain is smart. Yeah. And the upper brain, the forebrain, can be confused to work against yourself. Mm-hmm. And if you're getting stronger in the wrong way, because it's just frightening you at the lower brain level, you can sense it.
In the amygdala.
The amygdala, the cerebellum, the emotion,
yeah.
like the lower brain, you can sense that you're becoming uptight, but you've got to be a good little soldier and do the exercise well. So you get really strong at bracing against the force where you're maintaining neutral. You know, neutral is no man's land. Shane, you want to spar around? Get in neutral. I'm going to wait for you to get to neutral, and then I'm going to knock you out.
Yeah.
When you're flat.
And that was one of the things that really fascinated me when I first met you. Is I was at a point where I was feeling very rigid. I was feeling robotic with my movements. And it was, I was studying fighting for such a long time that it was like those were the techniques that I'd follow. But even like walking, I'd start thinking about like, am I walking correctly? I feel a little rigid when I'm walking, when I'm running. And then I started getting these like different cues from you that other people said I shouldn't do.
Yes.
And you gave me the freedom to be able to explore a little bit. And then I started dancing more and I started finding rhythm.
Yes, because here's what it is. I just refuse to believe something that's not true. You shoot me and kill me. If survival is contingent upon saying that you're gonna lie and own up to it, shoot me. I don't want to live. I'm an American. I was born and raised in 1970. Moving on. Listen. I have a certain belief and I saluted that belief every single day for many, many years. And I have friends who have died to preserve that right. Yep. And what we need honest exchange between the animalistic side of humans, because all it is, and it's extremely difficult, is balancing competition and cooperation. Competition and cooperation have to be in balance. And what happens is the do-gooders crush out competition because, it's not fair that you get to lose. You're going to have hurt feelings. Oh, no, so you don't lose. You get a trophy. You get this. You get that, right? You're not held accountable. You never learn anything. It's such a waste of a human being to be so weak. Weak. And that's what's happening. And it's like happening before our eyes. And see, this is where it's like you can go watch Rodin's The Thinker. It's a sculpture. Rodin's The Thinker, okay? And if you study it and understand it, he knows the martial science. And where he is with his hand, he's covering his mouth because it wasn't ready to be revealed at that point in time. See, I have this theory that we come, the Homo sapien, the one who can write it down. Ooh. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Can you imagine the power that you would wield as the patriarch of your kind? And you could write marks that nobody else could interpret except the people that you informed. We look at the Bible, the Bible. The Tao, yin yang, Bible, up down, Bible, the New Test, amen. Oh, amen. The New Test, math, certainty, math, mark, look, join. Oh, no, you didn't. Math. You mark, look, and join. And so that's what I do. I go after the mathematics. The mathematics. Because the math, it adds up. And you have divine ratios that are in your body. If I make the fist that is reflexive here, the Fibonacci sequence down to the hip and to the floor is one level higher than if I fold at the second digit. Now the Fibonacci sequence is different. So it truncates it. So and this is the esoteric stuff that we won't have time to get into it. But what we're gonna do is especially I'm gonna teach you those 6 lines of intent,
which is one of the questions that we have from. But I do want to answer. So a lot of people who invent a world-used fitness tool that still today is one of the most common things, like Shane said, at any gym worldwide. Clearly, you don't have to do anything else if you didn't want to for the rest of your life, but you did. So whereas a lot of people would stop there and go, I'm set.
Yeah.
Where did you go from the Bosu ball? Like, where did you get all what was it that drove you to say, this is my calling? This is what I'm going to do?
Okay, so it was a great question, because if I had thought of the idea for the Bosu ball when I was 22 years old, I probably wouldn't have pursued it, because I had dreams to be an actor. Okay, so I was sort of beat up as an actor. I came close on some big parts, but I wasn't making enough money. I had a little gig on a soap opera, made about $40,000 in my best year, right? So it's still personal training was the bread and butter, right? And then when I thought of the Bosu ball, it was like, oh my God, like this, I can be a millionaire now. You know what I mean? Like, oh my God, like I can patent this, and this isn't going to be everywhere. It's going to last forever. So I recognized that, and then at that moment, what I did was I decided, rather than call buddies from college and say, guys, let's huddle up and let's make this thing, let's make something big. I was like, you know what? I'm going to hand it off to a license where I'm still involved in it, still have, very close connection to it, still innovating, right? But I'm freed from all of the responsibilities of the manufacture, distribution, marketing, right? So I just get a check in the mail. And there's plenty of headaches, and I've been through, I've spent millions of dollars in legal battles through the years for patent infringers and, contractual issues and all sorts of stuff, right? And I'm fortunate that I had my father to help me, guide me through that with the Sharks, and I have a partner, Marty, who, you can't cheat Marty.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like Marty is salt of the earth, hardworking, that guy who's there to organize the effort and march, and tick the boxes that need to be ticked, and I get to be creative. And what it is for me is I have like a personal hobby with just like the efficiency of movement. And so I'm always shadow boxing. I'm always like paying attention to how easy it is I'm moving, because I like to do it. It's like if there's nothing to do, well, then I'll do that, and I sort of find myself doing it, and I enjoy it a tremendous amount. And what happened was, when I made the decision to like, okay, so the objective was become the world's foremost expert on the subject of balance, with the qualification measured by locomotion, so that it's honest and I can actually have a target to hit. That was the lighthouse. Amazing. Right? Because otherwise it's just a methodology to juggle things. Balance is synonymous with coordination. So it's not, don't fall down. That's just one application, right? The global systemic application that happens to be most important, because we need to get from here to there without falling down. It's pretty basic. So there are certain events during the course of that journey that where you sort of make a discovery that reveals a whole new realm of possibilities beyond that. So the first thing I did was I enrolled in Chinese acupuncture school. So Chinese medicine at Pacific College of Oriental Medicine. Yeah. And what I did was I asked around, and I found, okay, this guy is the founder of the school. He's teaching Oriental Medicine 101 this semester. Excuse me, may I trail you at your clinic and assist you in any way that you see fit? I don't have to work. You don't have to pay me. I can hang out at your clinic. And this guy was old school, so it was laissez-faire. I did every single thing except for put the needles in. I did everything else. I did cupping. This guy was so laissez-faire. He showed me how to, you take the alcohol, you burn the cotton, you get it going, you stick it in the glass cup, then you put it on their body. I'm doing that to people. This guy didn't care. He just trusted me. Because I think I was also studying the push hands, the Tai Chi Chuan. So I studied Tai Chi Chuan, and I went to New York City, and I spent a month studying with William C.C. Chen. I wanted to go right to the source. And when William C.C. Chang came and went under me, and I tipped over the waterfall and lost my balance before I knew I lost my balance, I'm like, oh, baby, do it again. Now I know what it feels like. Yeah. Oh, and if you know what it feels like, you know what it feels like. If you can emulate Kobe Bryant emulated Michael Jordan to frame by frame precision. You can do a one-to-one analysis of Kobe Bryant all the way to the tongue is the same where and when as Michael Jordan with signature moves. The same exact thing. They both did it so many thousands of times. And if you can emulate Michael Jordan, well, then you're moving like Michael Jordan. You see how it works? So what it is the movement training is about positions and transitions. And what happened was going to Chinese medical school and learning the Tai Chi push hands and having the financial resources to get high-level body work. So I went and I sought out this guy, David Weck, who was the first student of Moshe Feldenkrais. He was in the batch of the first students. I found Ed Mopin, who was the first student of Ida Rolf from Rolfing and structural integration.
Yeah.
And I had Ed give me the 10 sessions. I went up to Esalen for weeks at a time, up, at Esalen Institute, studying structural integration, body work, getting and receiving. I've spent so much money on body work.
But that's where I was wondering, where did you get your education? And you were just explaining.
Well, what was the body? So here's what it is.
Best.
Here's what it is. The best. I want, and I need to touch. Let's do it. Do the work, right?
Right.
So I would measure it with my running economy, right, and my ability to play push hands. And what happens is.
Fight or flight.
Fight or flight. That's how I measured everything that I do. And so what happened was, I played college football, and I used to be a human torpedo. So it's I admire Mike Tyson, I admire Lawrence Taylor, and I try to combine the best of that, where it's not just rotating and hitting you with my fist, but it's my mass hitting and displacing you. My greatest hit of all time was in high school. I'm a guy who's big on justice. So if you cheat, I have a problem, right? I'm fair as square, right? That's what it is, right? To the end. And if we're going to cheat, let's admit it, right? Yeah. So what it was, I was in high school and I was playing football. That was the most important thing. And in gym class, this guy, I go up for a rebound and this guy comes underneath me and tries to undermine me. So I land on his leg wrong and fall down. He tried to hurt me. Yeah. And I was vulnerable. And the rage came in me, and I just turned and I ran, I just moved toward him, and I bumped him with my chest, and both of our rib cages went boom, and his shoes fell off. He was 10 feet across the room, and his shoes were laced up, sitting right where they were, because I bent his fucking body. I was so fucking angry, right? That's what happens to soldiers when an ordnance goes off. The boots are still tied because the body's so plastic. Mm-hmm. Look at the slow motion in boxing. Yeah. You see that melon change shape. What are you kidding me? It's like an octopus. It could fit through a hole this big. You fucking kidding me? It's a bone. Your bones are elastic. Mm. And the reason why you have a sort of a range in your life of when you're most powerful, when dunking the ball is easy, it's not when you're 40 because your bones don't have the same resilience. You're stronger when you're 40 than you were when you were 25. But when you were 25, your bones bounced more. And it's the bounce that gives you the power.
And it's the same when you look at Usain Bolt, who you mentioned, when you look at him in slow motion. It's it's that bounce. The whole face is relaxed.
The economy comes from the connective tissue. What you want effectively on the ground is the minimum amount of contact time and the minimum amount of muscles sliding to lengthen and contract to make that happen in that instant. For the less than a 1/10 of a second, if you're really good, you don't want any muscles moving in that exchange other than the entirety of your body being a pressure transmitter. So it's forces transmitting through muscles that don't have to move. It's moving without moving. And what happened was in San Diego, I came from that East Coast and I discovered pot in terms of I'd meet a guy who's a lawyer and I'd be like, you smoke pot? You smoke pot every night and you're successful and you're not a loser? So it sort of opened up license for it, and that it also was catalytic to me losing my mind. So it's a very dangerous substance for some people. Because I was fortunate. Marijuana.
Okay.
Especially, and
Cannabis.
In some cases, I might have gotten a laced supply, because it's only recent that you can get a reliable supply of marijuana. Other than before, it was, call this number and the guy's going to deliver it. You don't know anything about it, right? But what happened was the pot. What I enjoyed about it was that it put me in tune with this serpentine, like kundalini force that just needed expression. And 2004, I met Buddy Lee, the jump roper wrestler, Buddy Lee. And I saw his performance, the dazzling ability with the jump rope. And I said, I recognized that I'm Mr. Efficiency. I'm going to do what he's doing, but I'm going to remove the jump through the rope. And my logic is that's just going to get me tired, and I ain't going to get any better at turning it, one way or the other. And what's the fancy stuff is all that turning the stuff. Going through it is okay, keep it honest for the performance, but I'm not performing for you. I'm downloading the athletic intelligence and the organization of the integration of the figure 8. And with the rope, you have this thing where you can create these bilateral alternating patterns that you get to repeat thousands of times, and then strategically put your mind's eye in your right hand. What am I doing to? That's how. And you can compare and contrast your way to proficiency through putting your hands everywhere all around, always integrated with your center, with your core. So you're never out of position. And the rope attenuates this communication that is an honest feedback that without it, the guitar gives you the feedback. You either hit the note and it sounds good, or it doesn't. And if it doesn't sound good, well, then you just change where and when. That's it. And with the rope, I recognize, and I had studied Wing Chun. When I was 26 years old, I studied Wing Chun, Bruce Lee's first form. Mm-hmm. And I read the books, Keith Kernspecht. I knew the WT, the WC, and the the V and the VC. I knew it all. Yeah. I'm a geek, and the internet, I dove in. And I went, I studied. And I didn't learn jack shit in class. Line up here, chain punch into the chest, and 6 assholes actually hate you. Like, what the fuck is this bullshit? Tansao Bansao. And it's people who don't know, militaristic, because I was studying the WT, where you had that lung tin and the German influence. Yeah, and these guys are militant. There's a bunch of Germans.
What was his name? Bostepi? No.
Emin Bostepi. I went to a seminar with Emin Bostepi. Emin Bostepi is a God's honest, genuine, badass martial artist.
From
all right,
Turkey,
so he's legit. He's very legit. Yeah. However, at the seminar that I went to, one of the beginners actually came at him. So here's the drill.
You get the story you just told me?
Yeah, you get to come at Emin Bostepi, all right? And he's going to, dazzle the rest of us with the dominance over you with this beautiful martial art called Wing Chun, right? And so, when I did it, I, demurred. I sort of did a half-ass takedown, and he, and it did the elbow, okay? Right? And then one guy actually tried to hit him, and Bostepi didn't let him hit him, but he hit him with a, not a pretty punch, and he gave him a bloody mouth. And the guy's bleeding. He's a little white belt, whatever, and it's like, and Bostepi said it. He goes, if you're actually going to try to hit me, I'm actually going to defend myself. Oh, smack. And what it is in the striking arts, the issue is that you don't get to go full speed, so you never get really good without damage. So it's that Mayweather pitter-patter positions, move without moving. If you study the way Floyd and Roger did it, it's your frame, and you learn to move without moving, and you know where you are the whole time. That's the game, right? Structurally, he's playing chess on a level that, and by playing the patty cake that they did, they got to go at speed, where it's reflexive, and Roger and Floyd and it was just the speed, and that's just the framework and the seed for what you watch Floyd. You gotta keep, it's hit, don't be hit.
How much are you following?
I'm holding it all.
Okay.
No.
Sorry.
I'm so amazed.
Yeah, no, the reason I ask is because I know when I first met you, I knew that there was there was stuff that I was picking up, very little, that I was like, oh my God, that's genius. I love that. That's going to change the way that I think, the way that I move. But 99% of it, I was like, wait, what? I'm not following.
Yeah.
And I know for the people who even made it this far,
Thank you.
I think there's a lot of that going on.
Yes.
I know you have a lot of skeptics. Do people challenge you?
Well, thank you very much for saying that, because what it is like, I've been operating in this sort of little incubator, just developing something that with the like I said from the beginning, like I'm plotting and scheming to take under the entire world. Like I plan to make
a good way.
Oh, I plan to make the world's greatest footwear ever made. To provide the greatest creature comfort for humanity that's ever known, and plan to do things with, like, what it is it's building the resources and having the money, the funds to fund the creativity, but to do it on my own terms. And that's where the patience comes in. And so I have a plan for that. And now the plan is coming to fruition because of the propulsors. So the propulsors, when I invented the Bosu ball, it was ready, fire, aim. I knew that I had to, get the intellectual property and then create the story. That was what I knew I had to do. And then I knew it would take care of itself, as it were. Yeah. With this, I knew when I invented this that I was going to become a billionaire. Not a millionaire, but a billionaire.
So you think these will be more successful than the Bosu ball?
This is going to become a universe. This will transform human locomotion. And allow me to explain.
Of course.
All right. In the history of our species, the only time that we have demonstrated the capacity to perform an athletic feat better carrying weight than not carrying weight is the ancient Greek long jump, the standing broad jump. You can hold halters. They were called halters, the carved stone weights, these marble weights, right? And you can build up the momentum with them because you're not measuring time in the broad jump. So you can wind up and you create additional momentum at the end of the lever with the halter.
Because of the mass?
Because of the mass. Yeah. And then you get to pitch it out there, which takes more time, and then pull yourself with that added momentum, and you can jump 8 inches extra. Okay, and then this is scientifically proven. This is what you could do, and it just makes sense. If you're an athlete, you could figure it out, messing around, as we were talking earlier, right? So now, the key component here is time, right? Okay, what happened was I went to Chinese medical school, I studied this stuff, and I started winding and whipping and spiraling, and I learned how to arrange my hands into the core fist, where I'm triangulating the fingers so that my flexion force routes back internal to my proximal body. So that means that unlike the angry inborn fist here, this more tension equals more stuck. The harder I squeeze this, the more clunky I am proximal. However, when I route the force through long bone transmission, this triangulation, the force into it creates proximal fluidity and freedom.
Because you get more rotation.
Well, because you changed the tensional balance of your body. The flexors, if I flex here, I'm going to an end game where I break. That last digit will crush. Remember that game called Mercy where you squeeze
peanuts,
somebody? There you go. That's a horrible feeling to break that digit. It feels terrible. So what happens here is now, and I'm going to put it in your hand for the B-roll, and you're going to do a demonstration. You're going to feel it. And I'm going to demonstrate the C-fist in the B-roll too. Yeah. So what it is I figured this out watching Floyd Mayweather fight Shane Mosley. Oh. So what happened was I've bought boxing fights. There are times when I was at a trade show and I got a cab, went to a different hotel because I have to see the fight. Yeah. I have to see the fight. Yeah. So when Mayweather was fighting Mosley, I remembered I had to see it, right? Second round, Mosley hit him. Yeah. And he landed, and it was a real shot.
I thought Mosley was going to win that fight.
In that moment, I did too, and I was very excited, and I jumped up, and that's when I went to here, and that's later that night I found that, and I was like, it was a revelation. It was like one of those, the Boondock Saints, where God just reaches down with a glow and lifts you up. And it's like, oh my God, right? And so that balance allowed me to now use my hands to punch and create a striking step that evolved the double down pulse. And as soon as I felt that, the return that comes from shoring up that fascial integration through an integral skeleton, so I would go boom, boom, boom. And then I thought, that's Deion Sanders. Deion Sanders punches down. And as soon as you see it, as soon as you feel it, you can see it because you understand it innately.
Yeah.
And so it was like, oh my God, Randy Moss, Lawrence Taylor, Darryl Green, Chris Hill, they all go boom, boom, boom. They create more force faster with the hand coming forward rather than trying to swing it up.
And really, there's footage. If you watch the footage of these guys moving, they do.
It's just,
there's no arguing.
But and that's the magic. The magic here. And so this is why it's so important and this is why you are so important, because you slow it down and make it digestible for the audience. I'm vomiting this out in enthusiasm and passion and just stumbling forward to try to change the world.
And every time I hear you say it, I understand it a little bit more. I just know that the first time I heard it, and you put the core fist in my hand, and I didn't get it. I didn't understand. I was like, do I punch with this? What is the point of this?
Right.
But I did know that I teach, and I personally like punching with
Fingers flat.
straight fingers.
Yes.
So I've always
Wait, what?
Yeah, like even like on the heavy bag, I punch like this.
Yes.
Like I very rarely will squeeze and make a fist these days.
And that's the same with Bernard Hopkins does this right here.
Yeah.
Mayweather's do this. The good people don't do this because why? Is because there is a physiological consequence to doing this that slows you down and makes you more vulnerable.
And then you'll watch all the top level fighters when they shadow box, their hands are open, and everyone will say, "Well,
fluidity."
Yeah, and they're like, "Well, they're just warming up. They're not actually." But it is. It's
in
that
a
fluidity.
boxing glove itself. You can't do this
Yeah,
because there's so
that's
much
true.
mass. I mean, that you can't do that. So if you know what you're doing, you're wedging and triangulating the bone structure. If you know what you're doing.
And when we were younger, we used to sounds terrible. We used to fist load. Like we would put a roll of quarters in my hand because we would always break our hands in fist fights.
Yes,
So
exactly.
we would have that buffer. We would have that roll of quarters
Yes.
in there.
So you're
That's
saying
exactly
that as a fighter, you should have your hand like this.
No, what I'm saying is as a human being, you should cultivate the ability to transmit force as fast and as freely and as fluidly and as fun as you possibly can. And you can do it with your next step. This applies to winning the fight against the ground. That's the common enemy is dis-ease. Okay? Dis-ease. And misinformation. It is irresponsible for a fitness professional to uproot an innocent consumer. If I'm uprooting you and making you better and stronger at insisting on being no man's land neutral, I'm making you more fixed in your position, whatever it is. You're less open-minded because you're less safe.
Right.
We told you you're not safe. Your safety, your solution that you're being taught, and I'm talking about at the reflexive level beneath your thoughts. And that's what makes it that much more insidious because you're sapping the human from the foundation, which is the root to gravity in the ground. And if I Pavlov press you, I am uprooting you from gravity in the ground. And now the where and when, I'm putting you in purgatory. It's called freeze. It's called right now you're worthless. You can't do anything until you change and differentiate. Now you can go. So what we do is we say, oh no, we want to master the polarity of maximum functional rotation, coiling core, spinal engine. It balances and optimizes locomotion is what we're doing. And you optimize the side. And then you optimize the other side. So you can play catch between optimized where you have the maximum amount of potential through the myofascia, so through the connective tissue. So we just put my training, like what I've found is I have found balance. I'm the world's foremost expert on balance because I focused on that subject measuring locomotion. And it just so happened that I've been blessed to have martial arts teachers who taught me principles and philosophy, and then I put together my own little unique, application and usage of self to execute principles. Face the force is one of the most useful cues that was ever given to me. Face the force. And if I'm not facing the force, I don't have time to twist and get there because horizontal, you get me, I'm flanked, and you just keep me. So what I have to do is I have to cut and intersect, right? What is Bruce Lee? The intercepting fist. The intercepting has to cover but not cross the center. The center needs to be covered, and I have both sides. If I don't have that, then I don't have that. And it's this way and it's this way. And nobody knows this. This is very foreign. But this, when I have the V structure, I'm covered. When I have the A structure, I'm open. The V, you get to close it and you get to not be flanked. So I can cut and face the force, establish the bony bridge, and then orient my body about that triangulation where my bone structure can funnel your force. My bones can take it down to my hips, to my feet, boom, and move you.
Wait, real quick, just for people who are listening and don't have a visual, what David is doing is he's showing his back, talking over his shoulder, but instead of having to turn, which is the idea of someone cutting an angle on you, flanking you,
right,
he's sort of coming underneath. And
yes.
What I would recommend is just tuning into the video.
Yeah, dipping to verticalize. When you verticalize,
like a yogi.
Well, yes. I mean, the true yoga is martial because it's protecting your air and blood. The true yoga is jujitsu. That's what it is. If you really want to know the truth about it and feel the most comfortable, be the person that is impossible to kill empty-handed.
So I gotta be honest. I gotta contain myself with the amount of questions that I have. And
sorry.
I'm like,
you guys go and I'll...
No. I gotta contain because I just want to ask all these questions. And so we're standing, me and Shane are standing on these soul steps.
Yes,
right?
the soul steps.
And you know, it's so much from the creation of force that you're saying, which is the transfer of mass, and you know, we're going in so many different directions. But I'm just, and that's why I gotta contain myself and try to keep the questions linear to a certain extent. But when it comes to, you say movement, you say running, and for those that don't know, me and Shane ran a marathon not long ago, and Shane just said halfway through the race he went over this. And you know, from training myself for an ultra marathon, you know, trying to understand the best stride, so to speak, and you're going against all of this,
yes,
and saying that's not the way to do it, and the way we're standing on the soul steps is different from what I thought was the right way of moving my feet.
Yes.
How? Where did you learn that? How did you develop this?
I developed it by being athletically inadequate to be elite so that it would come easy. So my athletic inadequacy forced me to just apply intelligence and first principles thinking, like Elon Musk looks at electric vehicles. That's how I look at the human body. And so I'm not looking to... My technology and my understanding is extremely primitive and simple, but it relates to gait because, again, if I can measurably improve my ability to transport myself from here to there, I have more energy to do whatever I'm going to do when I get there. I get there on my terms. And life, the best defense is a great offense. Mm-hmm. And what you have to understand is how to use gravity with you to your advantage. And it's investing correctly in the loading to create the most economical recoil and exploding. And you can game the system. You can game gravity by mastering both sides' balance. And what that means is it means that you're able to change your base and have your upper body not change. And if you can do that on your right side and you can do that on your left side, you can literally start to play catch with yourself where you do all the muscle gliding, the filaments moving. It's against no resistance. It's open chain in the air. The only time it's closed chain is in that note where you hit that chord and then the hands come. The hands come and punch it or spiral it or do something to bridge the landing and the loading. And the hands, and this is what makes this so special, and why I'm going to be like a Willy Wonka of exercise because I'm going to invent new bathtubs and showers. Well, no, but I'm not yet. I'm like a little infant because I've just invented the Bosu Royalty. I need to make money by selling this to the entire world. So it's an honest income, right? Instead of selling something that everybody has, I want to sell something that everyone has. It won't sell as many as these, but during the course of a human life cycle, it is in your interest to use this, learn it, and enjoy the fruits of less labor, because it's physically easier to move your body with this than without it when you use it properly. And that, as an inventor, I'm extremely proud, because I surprised myself. When I was 6 years old, I dove off my fence and broke my nose because I thought if I could arch my back just right, I might be able to pull out of it and fly. And I tested it out. And it landed badly, and I hit my nose on the ground because I tried enough commitment that my nose hit the ground from the fence, and it was whatever, fence this high. But it's that desire for economy and the willingness to just try it. You know what I mean? Like, does it work?
So I just real quick, I'm laughing here because when I was 10 years old, I dove into a pool, a 4-foot pool, with the exact same idea. I can arch my back.
Yeah.
And I hit my head and got nearly paralyzed from the neck down.
Oh.
I had to wear a neck brace for like 6 months.
Thank God you made it through that one.
I dove in a baby pool. We're trying to win a bet, thinking if I arched my back enough, I wouldn't hit my head, even though it was low.
Okay.
But I did hit my head. So
The moral of the story.
Well, what it is we are the intrepid explorers who dive in,
Right.
quite literally. We wanted to test something, and we were whatever. But
so you're taking something where athletes, which is one of the most measured over time sport, which is running, right?
Yes.
You look at 100 meter, Usain
Yes.
Bolt, the fastest man in the world. I just used him as an example yesterday. He's a multimillionaire because people want to know who's the fastest man in the world.
Yes.
Your marathon, you just broke 2 hours, right?
yes.
You're a true scientist because you're saying, here's my theory, poke a hole in it if you can.
I invite it. You see,
Right?
I'm the most threatening person in fitness because I invented the Bosu ball, which what happened, and the reason why I went into the whole story of this sort of functional fitness cabal, as it were, the reason I went into that is because the narrative, for them to take over functional training, they had to own core stability and core function. And they took control of that with the message that you have the foundation in your repertoire. The thing that you need most that you're going to build from is the rigid neutral stability to resist rotation. So you have to, come hell or high water, I need that core, that spine to stay neutral, and now I'm going to try to upset it with a lateral force coming from the side.
Yeah.
And so what you're doing is you're literally teaching someone to push the pull door, right? Like from a martial standpoint, it's like if I'm going to hit a baseball, I gotta put my weight, and I have to differentiate so I can funnel to center. So you're essentially saying that I'm going to get really good at mechanically, if I were going to apply this to baseball, it's an arm swing that is flat, and that's all I got. I'm not able to shift my body weight. And what it relates to is at the academic level. Okay, scientists are as conceited and as ego-driven as athletes, but they compete in a different realm. They compete in the ethereal. The athlete, he gets punched in the face. The scientist, he just verbally jabs and cites science and wins the argument without the logic. And this is what's happening in the fitness industry. It's like corruption that they're teaching people to be more frightened, more freeze, to be completely ineffective to the most important function, which is relating to gait and the ground, being ready to go. Like, we don't need to warm up. Let's go. It's D-Day, baby. Come on. Get off the foam roller. Get up and go. And what happens is when you build on a faulty foundation, that which you build is not sound. Okay? It's not sound. It's music, it's notes, it's chords, it's learn the position of strength, right? Learn it, boom. Now float, butterfly, ooh, bee, boom, right? And you learn how to move your body with this fluidity, and it's available to everyone. And the best thing is you don't have to buy something. Like, I'm not just a guy with a gadget. That's what they called me. Because what happened was the Bosu ball became the punching bag of that industry. If you were a strength coach, you got brownie points by making fun of the Bosu ball, because you know how guys like to pile on, right? You know how it's like red meat for dogs. Right? And a lot of them have that 15-year-old mentality, right? And they get strong to guard for their insecurities, and everything's about like, and embarrassment is the worst thing ever, and I'm never going to get embarrassed, and I know right. And that's what happens is. Yeah. So, and that's what happened in strength training. It became fashionable, if you were smart, to bash the Bosu ball in this passive-aggressive, well, it may be appropriate for some rehabilitation settings, but for a healthy athlete, you are a circus clown joke of a disgrace to the industry if you use the Bosu ball, was literally the message. And you have fellows of these organizations, people high up in it, campaigning against the Bosu ball. Social media pictures with like an X through it. Never do the Bosu ball. That shit affects my goddamn bottom line. Seriously, if I add up from 2007, the disparagement to my product, that basically cut it off. Because literally I had people telling me, I went to school at East Stroudsburg in a graduate course on kinesiology, and the professor told me that when the inventor of the Bosu ball found out his invention didn't work, he lost his mind. I am literally ridiculed, Shane, in those circles, okay? And I'm ignored mostly because what I'm speaking, you can't debate with me. If you're saying brace the core, you're afraid of me. Because you're going to get found out in this industry. And I want to apologize to the fitness industry and people for my sourness and my focus on the negative in outing the wrong. But see, it's one of those things where I trust my gut. And there's an insidious damage being done because what you're doing at the physical education where you're not bullshitting, you're programming in a lie. You're misinforming people, and now psychologically, they are not capable of fending for themselves in the manner that they could if they had true confidence. It's fascinating that the more advanced the martial artist is, the more advanced, generally the cooler and more chill and relaxed he or she is. They're not trying to prove anything. They understand that it's not about that. It's about that, the confidence.
The freedom that you provided for me was the game changer, and that's
the freedom. Yes,
yeah,
the freedom.
And it's the words you use, and it's funny you said Willy Wonka because I think that's the best metaphor for you. Because the more I watch Willy Wonka, the more I pick up on like the subtle things that he says that are just hilarious and also very, very wise. But you say things like move like the big cat, move like the wolf, and I walk my dog twice a day, every single day. And I noticed, and it's that. And then but I would never think to do that because I thought I'd look silly,
God, the social.
Yeah.
Here's what it is. The peer pressure can be good and it can be bad, but it's the most important thing. I'm developing a relationship with my children. My daughter's 13 and my son is 11, right? And I want nothing more than to be the best parent that I can for them, to set them up so they can fend for themselves and take care of the people they love, right? And so in speaking with my daughter, I asked her a question to sort of spur like real conversation. I was like, Paige, what do you find yourself thinking about most of the time? Because that's who you are and what you're doing is what you're thinking about, because that's the track, right? And so the answer for a 13-year-old girl or a 13-year-old boy is pretty much your social circle, your friends and your relationships. I mean, that's what you're done. I remember going away on Christmas vacation. I'm going to be away for 10 days. That puts me at a disadvantage in the social dynamic. I'm going to miss out on this and that. And if I'm not friends with him, he's an alpha and that'll block me off from this. And, I like her. Oh man, do I like her? And that's all I thought about when I was a kid. Social belonging, because we're social creatures, and that's where we come from, our standing in the society, right? And I was so adamant on being successful that I didn't enjoy so much of my life because I was OCD, because I always felt like I was balancing a million plates to perform at the highest level possible, right? And my outlet back then was alcohol. Saturday nights, I would get obliterated. And it was like taking all the pressure to perform, right? And just outlet it and become the beast. And then on Sunday, go to church and, you're a good boy all week long. You lifting weights and playing football and, you know what I'm saying? And then Saturday night, let it out, because I'd explode if I didn't let it out, right? And it's such a shame that I had to experience so many of those years in a state of angst where I was sweating and I was like nervous and second guessing and I was, strong, right? And successful. And there's the quality of a human being to be tenacious and to never give up and to suffer the inefficiencies and the consequences of all the compensation. It's a more important quality than graceful ease and smarts. Because this grasshopper, you're going to die. You didn't prepare for the winter. So you do need that, like, grit your teeth. I will hold on no matter what, even if even if my hip has to be replaced, whatever. You need to get the job done. But if you understand how to put the competitive cooperative balance in its place, and you empower the individual with the information, that's what this is. It's information to form positions, postures of greatest strength. And what it is if you're going after efficiency, you have to prioritize the balance, because remember I talked about math? If we look at math and we look at fractions and we can look at percentages, right?
Right.
Okay, so in the equation of power, the power equation is the force times the distance divided by the time. Okay, that's the power is the force multiplied by the distance divided by the time. Is the equation for power.
Power, yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
But and that's the physics definition of it. But the way it works in anatomy and biomechanics is power equals strength over balance. So it's a different fraction. So strength is the ability to make something happen, right? And balance is the efficiency, and it's a denominator. And what you do is you're trying to reduce the value. So balance is measured by the percentage of inefficiency is a higher number. So a lower number, a zero balance is the best balance, but you can't divide by zero. So you're trying to fraction it so that you have the most fine positioning of the pivot so you can create the maximum leverage for the strength in the numerator. So it's just a fraction. And basically, if you just say, like, on one leg, can I change my weight and hit down on one leg? And if I can do that with the figure eights, the only way you can do it, I have balance fractionalized down to that minute. So now what strength I have, it's 100% focused on the task at hand, and it's not being robbed and riddled with compensation that's like doing something necessary and essential, which is compensating for the fact that you ain't efficient. And we can strip it all away because, what it is this is something this is a mechanical feedback, and the 12-ounce version of this is the 8-ounce version. And this one, you have to try just a little bit to make it work. But the 12-ounce version, you don't got to try. And it's an out-of-box experience, Shane. I went to a trip to New Jersey, which I don't like to travel, but I'm strategically traveling because it gives me a break. And when I'm confined on the airplane, and it's just me, the music, and the computer, that 5 hours of just, there's nothing else to do but one. Like that, it's such a valuable space for me in the high altitude. It is the pressure change. I came back from that trip from New Jersey at the end of August, and I was trying to reduce the sound of the 8. The problem is if I reduce the sound, it reduces the power, and the whole point of this is we need the power, so they're loud, right? And so what I discovered was adding 4 more ounces inside of this container. This is the manufactured container. That extra 4 ounces makes it I can focus on the easy. And it's an undeniable, like you take them out of the box, you 12 ounces, think like a beer, don't spill it, right? And bounce the beads back and forth, boom, boom, boom. And then your body will naturally synchronize to that beat of your hands going like this. And it's when you don't think and you allow your body to just focus on that. It's locomotive. It sounds like a locomotive, right? As opposed to... As opposed to...
So let me ask you this. So if we go back to the running, just because that's mathematically or physically possible to measure, right?
Yes.
Do you get from point A to point B quicker than someone else?
No, than yourself, not than someone else. Usain Bolt could run backward and beat me in a race.
Right.
So poor biomechanics does... If you compare the apple to the orange, it's different.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
So when there's been a lot of R&D, research and development going into running because there's so much money in it, right? And then
no. I'm going to qualify that. The money that goes into the R&D is in making the sneaker that I'm going to sell. It's not in the biomechanics. As a matter of fact, the money has been corrupted because you have scientists who are operating on an incorrect theory of locomotion. And then you have the most prestigious scientist in the world at the most prestigious biomotor laboratory in the world saying foolish, untrue things irresponsibly on TV, gobbledygook, and he gets a pass.
Well, they're funded by these.
The king ain't wearing no clothes. This guy says the time it takes to change the position of the limbs in the air is the same amongst all people. At top speed, the time it takes to change your limbs, to reposition your limbs, is the same. Little old lady, Usain Bolt, you, me, at top speed, at your maximum speed, the time to reposition the limbs is the same. This is a quote, and the announcer's like, really? I mean, my legs are moving as fast as that sprinter right there. And he doesn't answer the question, mind you. He goes... The time to reposition the limbs is the same. That's his scientific finding with this $1 million treadmill. And when it's as simple as this, it is a treadmill that is not allowing you to propel yourself. You're balancing on a moving belt. And so at your maximum, you're in the air for about that much time, but your maximum is only 6 miles an hour, and this guy's running 27 miles an hour. They're both in the air the same amount of time. Her belt is going 4 miles an hour, and his belt is going 30 miles an hour, but the time to reposition the limbs is the same. It's irrelevant information that is confusing and misleading, and it demonstrates a level of ignorance that is fundamentally irresponsible. I'm the guy... My strategy, Shane, academically at Williams College was graduate with honors grades and do as little work as possible. I would go around the dorm.
Economical.
I would go around the dorm. I would be like, please write down the 5 easiest classes that you ever took in this class. Seriously. Yeah. I want to know what's the easiest ones. Like, you show me the easiest A that I can find, right? In one of the finest academic institutions in the world. Okay? And I have a high-powered brain. Rather than spend a lot of time, I focused on like speed reading. I learned how to basically take 70 pages and okay, I got that one. Okay. And I learned how to do that. Raise your hand early, contribute, and sit back and relax. Huh. And you don't even got to study that much because you sort of followed the thread. Right, so I've always had that gaming the system where I want to work real hard so I can put myself in a position where I don't have to work.
So if you look at that, and then you look at, for example, like the Tarahumaras. I've done some study. I have two questions for you. One, so looking at the Tarahumaras, they brought down a Tarahumara, the Mexican running people from the mountains of Mexico. At first, they were laughing at them. They have a very different running style, right? But once the 54-year-old Tarahumara beat all the top athletes in the world in the ultramarathon, all of a sudden, the Tarahumara way was the right way. So you look at a Tarahumara and the running style, and then the other running styles that existed beforehand or developed afterwards. Yours is different.
There are different styles because what it is I'm underneath the martial art, underneath it, right? So I don't profess to be an expert in any martial art, but I can give you the factors that sets up your body that you can execute whatever martial art you're doing optimally with my work as a foundation. And I would argue that my work is the best because it is X on the map. Like I found it. And it allowed me to invent something that you're not supposed to do, which is faster with weights. So the answer to that is what it is with my training. You now have different styles of locomotion. You can center 8 with a double down pulse. I can sidewinder. I can same side stride. And with the how do you say it?
Tarahumaras.
Tarahumaras.
Yeah.
Tarahumara.
Yes.
Yeah, Tarahumara, right?
Yes.
So for the Tarahumara, what they're doing essentially is they're positioning themselves with their head over their foot, and there's a slight little bounce in the hands, right? And it's that distance running. If you watch Eliud Kipchoge, there's a bobbing in a distance runner, the side to side, depending upon the width of your stride, is the width of your side to side. I mean, it's head over foot. When Allison Felix is at 130 meters in the 200, she's so bow-legged and pigeon-toed that her head stays centered because her feet are running on a tightrope, right? But she's still figure-eighting with the spiral, right?
So what you're saying
So what I'm saying is that you can do different styles of running with mine, and
adds to.
Well, what it is, you've broken it down. So now it's like, okay, which do I want to focus on? Do I want the full figure 8? Do I want to hover here where I keep the center of mass exactly steady? What we're teaching baseball players now how to steal base with a new technique that's never been done before. And Delino DeShields Jr., who I've only worked with twice, still uses my technique to set up and steal the base, and he hasn't mastered it.
So, and let me also...
chasing down a fly ball. When you're chasing down a fly ball, you can do a same side stride where you balance yourself and you can run really fast at level.
Your head's not moving.
Where your head doesn't move. It's like it's militaristic.
Which is what a football player would want.
You're right. You got to track the ball so you don't want your head moving.
What it is. And it helps cutting angles. When Rajay Davis was down in the camp with the New York Mets this past before the previous year, he was running around third base with that same side stride. They said the coaches were like, we've never seen anyone cover that ground as fast. Because we're cutting angles that nobody has ever strategically analyzed it the way I've analyzed it. And I've taken a Williams College education where I was going to go kick ass on the fucking Wall Street and be a millionaire and have 2.5 kids and a wife and the big thing. I was going to have it all. Okay, I was going to win in life no matter what. And that's what I had sort of, okay, well, play football. Okay, well, now what? And it was like, eee. Like, I don't want to spend my life on the train going to Manhattan making money. I want to be passionate about what I do. And the acting was just self-psychology, really. You know, I got a lot of angst. I have, a lot of problems. And I think at the root of my issue is a bleeding heart. Like, I'm a true American. Amor. Like, I can. Like, I love, like, and my heart feels only whole when it truly understands and defines what it's willing to die for. Like, that psychologically, I need to know that, I need to know that it's full commitment. And that gives me, comfort, That, I'm very emotional. And it's just, there'd be other ways to play this, more stoic and, more measured and more whatever. But I don't know. I have to be me.
But I love the passion. It's amazing. So my second question was then, you just said it, pigeon-toed, bow-legged. I can relate to that.
Okay, yeah.
The bow-legged part. But then you look at someone like Lomachenko, right?
Yeah.
Whose father put him into Ukrainian folklore dance and ballet at a young age, not to become a dancer, but to improve his boxing. My wife is a ballet dancer from the Ukraine as well.
Yes.
I have flat feet. So I would look at how ballet dancers would train their feet, and they will have a high arch on the foot, right? That high arc, which will allow you, shows that your foot is more trained. You're saying it's okay to be...
Here's what it is. In physics, to describe three-dimensional space, there are what is called 6 degrees of freedom. And it's a sort of
Leads into the
aviation.
question. Yeah.
So 6 degrees of freedom
Right.
represents the 3-dimensional space because the object can pitch and roll and heave. So not only can the object itself move in the sagittal plane and the transverse plane and that stuff, it has those other 3 qualities. So there's 6 degrees of freedom. What the ballerina is doing is she's going up on the 6th degree the way a cloven animal, the deer, the horse, are on their fingernails. What they've done through that extremity, that limb, they have maximized the vertical potential. So what they did was God and them got together and said, all right, we are being preyed upon. So every time I bend down to bite the grass, the lion might come try to get me. I'm terrified. I'm going to move my eyes to the side because I don't need to focus. I need to be, peripherally aware. All right. And I got to be up on my haunches. Like I got to be able to drop. So I'm going to create so much vertical displacement that I'll balance on my finger fucking nails and they turn into hooves and they're cloves. Right. The cats that are preying upon them are not operating on the 6th degree because the 6th degree, it's just too sharp. Right? It's just too sharp. It turns out that I can climb trees and get much more purchase when I go down to the 5th degree, which is the metatarsal and metacarpals are vertical. Right? And so what we are as human beings, we're on the 3rd degree. The snake is on that 1, right? And then the reptile's on the 2 because they're lateral. The mammal goes to 3. But the human being is on the calcaneus, so we're grounded on the heel, and we use it because we need it. We need the heel, right? But it so happens that when you figure out the positions and the transitions and the strategies of how to use yourself to play the game of relating to gate, gravity, and the ground, you can strategically create a dynamic shift that allows you to play on the 4th level where the metatarsals are not vertical, which will injure you, and you're not grounded on the heel. You're floating with this 4th level of balance where all the slack is out of the system and the power of your heel, your calcaneus, is shifted forward to the outside ball of the foot, the 4th and 5th metatarsals. And I called that the green dot. And that is where, if you're athletic, that's the initiation for the landing so that you can take those forces and leverage the maximum leverage to the heel, which gives you the posterior. Without the heel, you don't have the posterior. So the anatomy of the foot, the way it works is the 4th and 5th toes, they route back to the heel bone itself. The 1st toe, 2nd toe, and 3rd toe don't route to the heel bone. They route to the talus bone, which is on top of the heel bone. So in ballet, they call it the toe foot is the inside and the heel foot is the outside. As the athlete who's not doing something to display some, poetry and motion for the purposes of choreography, but no, this is the improvisational in the moment athletics where we don't know what's coming next, right? Okay. You need to be hinging lower down. You can't go up as high, right?
Right.
So it all has to do with that vertical potentiation. And for the foot, the outside is what I call the strong side because that's the structural anatomy that routes through the bone structure, direct connection to the heel. You are levered there that I can put weight on that green dot and there's no slack to transmission. I have full force out of my foot. When you watch Usain Bolt and these guys, they initiate there and then they roll it across. Now, it's the strong side is the outside. That's the 4 and 5, the fortified, right? The fortified. And then the long side. And the long side, there's vectors, okay? There's force vectors where you have in the pitch of it, the challenge is what do you do with the big toe, right? The big toe, you're going to go outside the big toe or inside the big toe? Which way are you going to go, right? And it turns out that there's a 15-degree angle that will stem out, and it's the 4 line and the 6 line and the 6 lines of intent. No one will know what we're talking about. But
I have a question on that.
On the 6 lines of intent. But what happens is you can distribute your weight where you have a clean exchange that exhibits no slack in the system so that there's no undue pressure localized anywhere. It's a systemic interpretation of the pressure. So you're changing, absorbing, and redistributing, recoiling, boom, with no hot spots. There's no weak link in it that takes the burden of it because you're distributing it through the skeleton. And if you've taken the time to tensionally balance through the upper body, now these act as the pistons that boom, again, send a jolt of force that sets the connective tissue up and it springs into action. If you watch like a science show and they do the quicksand demonstration where you take like a starch powder and you put water in it, and if you run across it, you hit it hard and it sets up and you can get across. But if you walk across it, you sink in. And it's the same stuff as that slime that the kids make and like Play-Doh stuff. Like you could put that there. If you punch it really fast, it instantly sets up and becomes springy and resilient. And your body does the same thing. I was fortunate to do a fresh frozen dissection with Thomas Myers and Michelle Dalcourt, which meant I went to this facility where they were like, 9 or 12 cadavers, and we were cutting them open and we were looking at the anatomy, and they were fresh frozen. So when they died, they throw them in the freezer. So you have no preservatives in this tissue. So you're seeing it as close to living tissue as possible, because you get that window of opportunity when these bodies are thawing out. Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo, they had to rob graves to study anatomy. Okay, this was so cool. It didn't even smell bad.
So the question on the six
lines is 6 degrees of freedom.
I was looking up the question now, and of course, because it's been more than 24 hours, now the question is gone. But it was 6 lines, and it said, do you move your body around the object or the object around the body in a 3-dimensional space? I think the question was. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, it does. I mean, it makes sense in the sense of orientation, mapping the space within you, mapping the space without. So what's really cool is that my form of jump rope training, where you basically take the jump out of it and learn 4 fundamental patterns, it has taken on a life of its own and created a whole community called the rope flow community. Okay. And so basically there's a bunch of people who recognize like, wow, I can do this a lot and I don't get tired and I get the athletic benefits and I get this unification, the harmonization. The Sugar Ray Robinson didn't jump through the rope. Yeah. And he was able to fight twice in one night kind of fight. Yeah. Like, I'm talking about. Like, he better fighter than what they got today. Most. If you really want to know the truth, I bet money he was. I bet money he was. Yeah, yeah. Right? But that, I just lost the train of thought.
The movement from the jump rope?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Around the object versus...
So the object, when you use the rope, you can, the way that we teach it, so you're going to get the most from it. Because the idea is I want what comes when I don't have the rope. Like the rope, there's going to be a time when I'm not doing the rope, and I want to have some muscle memory that was developed that I get to carry around forever. So it taught me something. And the way you do that is you map the cardinal directions and you keep the object going the same direction. And we start with an underhand pattern, figure 8's underhand, because that's the basic locomotive, bipedal, underhand figure 8. That's your most powerful. That's the way that you sprint, etc. It's the underhand locomotive 8. And then what you do is the rope keeps going in the same relative trajectory, but you turn around 180 degrees. So now you're facing the other way, and the spirals aren't going under. The spirals are going overhand. Now this, you're into the overhands, right? The cross, the jab, right?
And swimming.
Yes, and it's interesting because crawling, humans are impatient, so we crawl overhand. But the big cats, when they ambulate, they do underhand. The big cats do underhand figure 8's. The human... we're like, we're gangbusters. We want to go. So our crawling, these figure 8's, whether I do the figure 8 forward or backward, it gears through my spine. Yeah. The concavity and the lordotic kyphotic relationship of this S curve, that creates a 3-dimensional translation where the shoulder goes down and back. That brings the same side hip up and forward mechanically through the structure of the spine. Like if you tilt to the side and you let it go where it wants to go, where the force is natural, it's a coil. And what it does is it gives you that full potentiation to load that side maximally to get that maximum connective tissue and then boom, to snap into the other side. So it's the figure 8. So using the rope, you have that forward and back. And then what you have is you have the east and west where the hands do different. One hand goes overhand and the other hand goes underhand as you sort of pronate in front, supinate in back. Pronate, you drag it across, and it's this pattern here. Boom, boom,
and
boom.
It looks like dancing.
Well,
and you
what
said
it's a weight shift that you can find it and inform it. And what the rope does is it attenuates perfection. It gives you feedback, and you know how well you're doing instantly. There's immediate feedback, so you know whether you're playing the guitar well or not, right? Whether it's tuned, and you get to rehearse that transmission from boom, 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 thousands of times with a quality that you know.
Can we do this now?
Yeah.
Can we do this now?
Absolutely.
I've been standing here. I just want to do.
This is the longest podcast we've done.
Sorry.
No,
Sorry,
that's a
guys.
good thing. That's a good thing. I think I want to put this whole one on YouTube as well. I think it'd be great for people.
Well, I think the way I look at it, Shane, is, and I want to tell all of your viewers that the organic nature of this and the appreciation that I have for Shane Faison, because I was a fan for more than a decade organically. Like I had subscribed to your channel and I learned things, I confirmed things, and I would just through the years, I've always watched Shane's content, and he's, and then to meet him, I was like this giddy schoolboy. I'm like, oh my God, you're so cool, yeah. And so what this
How
is.
cool is that to get here, by the way, that you had something confirmed and tested and learned by
Well, but I mean, you have sound mechanics. You know what you're talking about.
But to have it confirmed by someone like you said, that's amazing. And of
No,
course,
but what it is like there was a relative time when I knew nothing and you knew so much more. Like there was a time when my cup was 100% empty, Marshall. Oh yeah, you want to fight? Let me bump my chest. You want to fight? You want to fight? I would have got my ass kicked by fucking boom. You know what I mean? So, and what happened was when I got to San Diego, I took that Wing Chun principles, and then I worked on the Taiji principles, and I met people who gave me good advice. And then I had high-level people who were generous with their physical touch. When you meet like a master, he doesn't want to touch because the guy's just going to challenge him, and then he's going to have to em and bo steppy. You're going to make me fucking try? Really? You're going to cheap shot me? I mean, I studied with this guy, Sifu Grottos, Jose Grottos in New York City. He's a street fighter, and he's legit. This guy's a real badass, and I studied personally with him. And I went out and I did a whole weekend in the Hamptons, a seminar with him. And this was we were trying, and this was after I had ropes in me. So like I had come back from California to study, and I was in Manhattan. And so I was seeing William C.C. Chen and Sifu Grottos. And I remember just the sort of like the figure 8 showing up to that seminar. And there was another guy at that seminar who was like high level. And so we became sparring partners. His name is Yuli Rodriguez, and I just reconnected with him. As a matter of fact, in Brooklyn, New York. He was in Brooklyn Prospect Park, and one of our trainers was running with these and doing the rope, and he's like, wait a minute, that's it. So we reconnected.
That's so cool.
And it was, and Yuli and me were doing it where it was like, this was real. I tried to sweep his ass and throw his ass on the deck and like nail his ass, but he was cat-like, and I couldn't sweep him. So we sort of had we were very evenly matched, but we had that same intent where we're not trying to do damage. We're both training, but I'm better than you. You know what I mean? You can't beat me. And he had that same, and it was sort of like matched. And it was and why did I bring that up? The Sifu Grottos, what he said at the dinner table was he's like, I don't play chisao with my wife because she'll hit me. Oh, you see what I'm saying? It's a cooperative thing, the chisao. So if you play Chi Sao, it's again why the striking arts are so challenging to get great at, because you can't go full speed without the true damage. Boxing, even if you train boxing until it's a real match, it's not real, truly speaking, when you have the fight flight emotions attached.
Same problem with self-defense too.
Yeah. Oh God, please, of course. And so what it is getting the root is martial, because the root is survival, and it's about maintaining air and blood to your brain. And jiu-jitsu is sort of like three-dimensional Tai Chi Chuan, in the sense that you have the fullest vertical displacement in jiu-jitsu. And if we have all the time in the world, and the only rule is there's no weapons, and we don't care how boring it gets, the jiu-jitsu player wins. Right? Because I'm just going to wait for your mistake, and then I'm going to submit you. That's the game. And Shamrock, we saw Gracie do it to Shamrock in UFC 2 or 3. Half an hour or whatever, right? And so that's the game, and that's the water defeats the stone. It's the soft defeats the hard. And the soft informs the hard. And we've reached a time where the influence and the social media is so rampant, and all these ideas and all this noise. This is a resonant message of truth with an actual device that's going to make locomotion easier for every athlete on the planet. And I will go from being sort of this weird anomaly outcast of fitness to people are going to say, that guy figured out the foundation. And you're going to end up doing training techniques with a rope, for example, just because I found it first. And so I get the naming rights, right? And so it's what it is it's an opportunity to sort of come back down to planet Earth to present something in a digestible form. Like if this is Thanksgiving dinner, I'm taking all of the food and I'm just, boom, here you go, Shane. How you like it? You want me to blend it? Go down here, right? As opposed to like, oh, here's your hors d'oeuvre, right? Like, here's this. Oh, you want a napkin? Like, take your time, right? And what it is I have reached a level where now I've assembled a team around me that it struck the balance. I wouldn't be able to be linear and methodical, and it might compromise my discoverability factor. The creativity. Because I'm still like, I'm constantly exploring, and I'm always finding new things, right? Just levels of depth. But I have a team, Chris Chamberlain, like you said, your understanding leveled up from that afternoon with Chris.
100%, yeah. And
what Chris is, so Chris Chamberlain, I met him through a mutual friend, and he came to Weck Method to, you got to meet this guy. He's an up-and-coming fitness professional, and, he needs to meet your stuff and stuff. And I taught him the royal coil, the coiling, and he proceeded to lift a kettlebell in the bent press that he just couldn't do for like 2 or 3 weeks, and he went and he did it easy. And he started PRing in strength. And so he came back, and then I gave him the ropes, and he, with the tenacity, he mastered the ropes extremely quickly and started teaching all of his clients, and he just kept coming back and kept coming back. And I've been doing this for so many years that, like, the expression, you've forgotten more than most people know type of thing. Like, that is, and I'm not trying to brag, but my understanding of biomechanics is it's novel, and it's the best that's ever been. And I'm competitive, and that's very important to me, that I legacy. And I hated myself so much growing up. I would look in the mirror with absolute disgust, because I was comparing myself to Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone and Brad Pitt or whoever, like the perfect ideal sex symbol. Guys want to be him, girls want to be with him. Like I want that. You know what I mean? Like, when I was a kid in the 1970s, we would look at, a town like this, surfboards and skateboards, California sun, not a care in the world, and beautiful girls, right? I mean, that's really what we're competing for, if you think about it. Most of us, it's offspring. We got to make more. You want to be desirable to the sexual partner that you desire. That's so innate in our human experience. right? The birds and the bees. And yet it's so taboo and so awful and blah, blah. It's just like, in order to move forward, what we have is we have this existential crisis as the technological advancement continues. The ability of fewer and fewer to do more and more expands exponentially to the point where you'd be able to print out a fucking atomic bomb in your garage because you downloaded the thing. I mean, all it is information, right? And if you think, and so why are we here? Like, what is this? Like, there's just so many questions and so much mystery. And the ultimate answer is, do you really want to know? Alan Watts is a philosopher, and he's got great stuff, and it's just this hypnotic voice. It's a lot of fun to listen to. Take a nap and just put him on.
I love his laugh.
Loud. Exactly.
I love his laugh.
It's just so wonderful, right? Yeah. It's a wily laugh of the man who, has thought about it enough to know just how unknowable it all is, and he has the details that he can share wonderful stories and dazzle you to just pass this next moment more enjoyably, right? And set you up to enjoy the moments to come. That's really what it is.
It sounds like a part 2, though, David.
Oh God, yeah, probably. Yeah. But
are we gonna move?
Yeah.
Let's move
let's just close this out. I just want to say, I mean, there's a reason why I invited you on, because I am a believer. I'm a follower. You've really changed the way that I move and the way that I look at things, and I thank you. And I really think you are going to change the world.
I have a sentence, a phrase that I write. This is why, and that every time I think of you, this is why. When you. I am going to let it cry. I'm going to stop. So I very, very rarely become overwhelmed. It's extremely rare because when I was a beginning actor, this is sort of the crutch. If you can get yourself to cry, it's real. And now you're not nervous and it's suddenly more interesting than you being afraid, right? And then you learn to say, fuck you. And that's when you're really interesting as an actor, right? When you're just like, love me, fuck you. Wait a minute. Love me, fuck you. That's the James Dean Marlon Brando. Like, you can't take your eyes off me. Like, that's the power of an actor, right? And we're all actors in this stage. And William Shakespeare, I'm just going to cue up just another minute talking about the king leash, the word play, because I believe that the human being, we are one of many different hominins or hominids, and we're the sort of winner of an epic battle between the eat and hurt-alls, the Neanderthal, eat and hurt-all. A bigger, meaning thicker, shorter but bigger and thicker, smarter. They come from the cold, where it's hard to be alive, and that is motivation to survive and innovate. If I can shake a tree and I get to eat the fruit, mañana. I'll get to it tomorrow, right? If you don't get to it tomorrow, you don't live. Well, you're going to get razor sharp smart and militaristically precise. And so here's what it is. Sticks, stones, ropes. Sticks, stones, ropes. Those are the fundamental tools that we use to get to here. And the fourth element, fire. Because once I hold dominion over fire, every other creature that doesn't control fire, that has a primal fear to fire, I'll stand down an elephant if I hold fire to the elephant. I get to sleep at night with the fire until such time that the other smart apes figure out how to tame the big bad wolf and create the dogs of war, because the dogs of war, now the fire that kept you safe is the dinner bell for my kind. Sniff your fucking ass out. We're gonna send in the wolves. They're gonna fucking decimate your fucking eat and hurt-alls that were coming to kill me, you, kill our kids and take our women and our shit. Because that's what used to happen. before you had civil society, you gonna make it through the night? We don't know, do we? Because someone's coming to eat you. Put that kind of pressure on yourself and put yourself, as an actor, what you do is you put yourself in the set of circumstance. You ask yourself, what would I do? What would I do if it was a God's honest threat that they're coming tonight? They're going to eat us. You know what I would do? I might try to look real pretty and pretend I'm a girl so they keep me alive and bring me into headquarters, and then I can... You see what I'm saying? Like, last thing I'll end with.
Slightly.
My daughter went to see The Joker with Joaquin Phoenix. She asked Mommy, she said, Mommy, Daddy reminds me of the Joker without the killing. And it's when you invent the Bosu ball, you have the leeway. And I went through acting where I became fearless in front of people. Because I've auditioned for thousands of times. I've been rejected thousands. I have a lot of practice. And the subject matter expertise gives me 100% confidence that I don't need to know what's coming next. I'm not nervous. I can tell you, this, all I got is the truth. And this is so powerful because, like, I start thinking of the greats. Like, think of the names, like Washington. Think of the Lincoln. Think of the names historic. Well, what about Weck? Oh, woo, how fucking cool. I get to stoke my ego by being important. Having contributed to the world, like, that is such a gift. And what it is we're at a time and place where what I want, and I feel this way, and anyone who loves me, knows me, do not be concerned with what I'm about to say. It's just what I feel is, if accomplishing the mission meant that I had to, take one for the team, fucking shoot me now, motherfucker. I'm going to die anyway. And it's the tribe. We talk about racism, but we're all the same race. You got different breeds. We have to get to the point where we can communicate honestly. What if 4 years from now, Jocko Willink was the president? A guy who held his breath to the point where he was willing to die because he knows his team. He knows his team will wake him up. And we need that selflessness. At this point in time, and my son, when he saw this logo, my son went like that, thinking he was representing that. It's so similar, isn't it? But this right here, you see this? I'm such an emotional person, and so what I do to deal with this emotion is I get angry. And I pressurize. And I pressurize as hard as I possibly can, like I'm trying to bend a fucking steel bar, but just peg it into me. And it gives me comfort. And it makes me more physically badass. And I can take care of myself. And, you're going to get cut up. You deal with me. I'm a squirrel. Go bother somebody else. You know what I mean? And I'll run away and get away anyway. So it's just such an opportunity to connect with someone who I respect because of the spirit. You have the underdog spirit. And that badass fucking wolf right there. I'll take those any day of the week. You give me fucking LeBron James and Bo Jackson and all of them, and I'll say, you know what? I want you facing the Warriors, the ones who are the underdog, the ones who do more. And it's just because we weren't gifted with that. You gonna pay me to play? You fucking kidding me? Who wouldn't take that? God handing out the cards. I get to play basketball and make all the money in the world. You kidding me? We didn't get that, did we?
No, we didn't.
No. So it's spreading the love and the power. So anyway, thank you so much, and I apologize for
No need to apologize.
No, definitely not.
Thank you, Dave. Let's move. Let's do some
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
We'll record that as well.
Let's move.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. We will see you on the next episode. But until then, check out David. How can they follow you?
Okay, so weckmethod.com and the David Weck on Instagram.
Yep. Gives away a lot of really good information.
Well,
tons.
What it is right. It's all coming into form and focus, and the movement is happening. Like I can feel the pulse that my work will change the world. Like I say that, not trying to not jinx it or like it's so important to me. That's all I care about, just being effective. And so what I've done is just like I've created an organization that is ordered, structured, educational, right? Chris Chamberlain, the director of program, Marty runs the business, and I acted like a jerk and an idiot on Instagram, just trying to get attention. So when somebody go to follow me, you may fall into something where you're like, this guy's fucking nuts. Like, I don't got time for this. And I understand that, but it was my own process where the camera, what happened was I got kicked off Facebook for some reason, and I went to Instagram, and you could only do 1-minute videos at first on Instagram. So I started like trying to cram in 4 minutes into 1 minute, and I was talking like crazy Eddie, and I started going crazy, and people it built a little audience for a crazy guy. Right, who's not taken seriously by the serious people, and is whatever, that guy's a clown. So I can understand and appreciate from someone's perspective, time is precious, and I'm wasting it right now. We're gonna move, but the point is just find my work, right? You just open your ears and listen for the because we're gonna change the world. It's the athletes and America that we're melding with the machine. And we sort of want to. Like, we want to. Elon Brain is talking about Neuralink. I mean, who knows what? We want robots to help us. But we have to honor the beast. We have to honor the animal.
Mother Nature.
If you don't honor it and you try to deny it, right? And then you try to, define it in these straight lines. You end up teaching people insincere information. There's hundreds of thousands of personal trainers out there who are subconsciously sabotaging their clientele by teaching them something that is exactly opposite of what you want to learn for martial art. Exactly opposite.
Which is movement in general.
Which is apprehension and no man's land and getting strong at that position and thinking that that's strength that's useful. It's strength that's actually not useful. It's counterproductive because it's opportunity cost, and your body is going to do what it does. What you practice, you perform. So if I'm rehearsing it and firing it together, it's going to wire together. And it's just like... It's anyway. Let's move, and thank you so much for the opportunity. I apologize.
You say you want to change the world. In many ways, you have already, and by doing this right here, you're changing the world. So thank you, David.
Thank you. You guys. It's an army of people. It's an army of honest people who just. We want to compete, and we want our competition to have the same level playing field. And now let's find out who's better, baby. You know what I mean? Play.
Let's find out.